Wendelin Baumeister is a magic-wielding noble in a medieval fantasy world, and he uses his powerful spells for the betterment of his people. When he takes a break from working the fields, he goes to relax with his 4 beautiful wives. It all started 10 years ago. He was just a regular office worker in Japan, and after an exhausting day, he fell asleep while eating dinner, only to get transported into an alternate world in the body of a 6-year-old boy at a party with a lot of guests and delicious meals. He thought it was just a hyper-realistic dream and tried to get back to his broke and boring life by sleeping, but a man wakes him up and brings him in front of the party guests for introduction. Wendelin had no idea what to say in front of all the adults staring creepily at him, but then his elder brother Eric came and covered for him. He introduced the boy to the guests as his shy younger brother named Wendelin Baumeister or Well. Well learns that he is the youngest son of a noble family, and it is the wedding of his eldest brother Kurt. He was happy that he would spend this life rolling in luxury, but the very next day he learns that his family was just 1 paycheck away from being homeless. He confirms it with Eric, who tells him that they saved money for years so that they could throw a good party for their guests, and now they were back to their original lifestyle. One more shocking news awaited Well as he finds out that his father's pull-out game is weak, and he has 7 elder brothers, including 2 half-brothers. Well is shocked that he is the 8th son of a poor noble, and he gets chronic depression because of this, as even corporate slaves make more money. One day, he finds Eric and 2 other brothers leaving home because the eldest brother, Kurt, has inherited everything after the wedding. So the others must give up their nobility and find a job. Well is in disbelief, but his brothers tell him that he will also have to go independent when he reaches adulthood. Well decides to start finding a way to change his life, and one day he finds a crystal ball and an instruction leaflet with it in the library. He learns that it can measure one's magic aptitude, which he thinks is a joke. Only 1 in 1,000 people could use magic, and Well decides to try his luck out. He takes a seat and then takes a few deep breaths before trying to Kamehameha the crystal ball. Nothing happens at first, but just as he is about to give up, the ball becomes a pride flag. He is shocked to realize that he is a wizard and thinks about finding a teacher now. He tries to find books on magic, but has no luck, so when his father comes to the library, Well asks him if they have any spell books, only to realize that his father is an illiterate hobo. Later that day, he was outside and tries to imitate what he has seen in anime to bring forth his magic, but fails. Just then, a man wearing more jewelry than a shitty American rapper appears in front of him, and he tells Well that he felt his magic earlier. His mom taught him to beware of strangers, so he points his stick at him. Like a total Chad, the man takes his stick and throws it away as he introduces himself as a magician named Alfred. The stick he just threw creates a domino effect, and a large boulder falls on a giant boar, who gets furious at them and charges at full speed. Well is terrified and wants to run away, but the magician catches him and tells him to use his magic. Alfred guides him and helps him circulate his mana to release a powerful wind that pushes the boar away. Well is shocked at this, while the magician congratulates him for using his first spell. The boar attacks them again, but this time Alfred takes charge, and with a swish of his finger, he sends the boar crashing through the trees using his wind magic. Well seems to be intimidated by his power, but the magician calms him down and introduces himself as a former court magician of the dukedom. He tells the astonished boy that he possesses the potential to surpass even his own magical abilities, leaving Well in a state of disbelief. They sit down in the forest for tea, and Well's eyes widen in astonishment as he watches the lifeless boar mysteriously vanish into the magician's small pouch. Alfred expresses his desire to pass on his magical knowledge to Well, leaving the boy puzzled. The magician claims that he simply wishes to have a worthy apprentice to carry on his magical legacy, and reassures Well that there's no need for any payment for the lessons. That was all he needed to hear, and agrees to become the magician's disciple. Alfred warns him that he should keep magic a secret, as it could create problems for him. He explains that this could cause problems between him and his eldest brother, as people would want a magic user to be the next lord. Well accepts that suggestion, and then the next morning, his training starts. First, Alfred wants to measure his mana capacity by comparing it to his, so he makes Well holds his hands and then pictures their mana. Alfred is impressed by how quickly he learns things, and says that Well is born with a larger mana reserve even compared to him. In the following days, Well diligently dives into his intermediate magic studies, experimenting with fire attacks on a pile of rocks. Alfred seems to be happy with the progress and compliments Well, noting that most people take months to reach this level. Additionally, Alfred kindly shares some mountain vegetables with his young student to help feed Well's Brocious family, which makes his older brother Kurt very jealous. The following day, Well takes to the skies with Alfred's guidance, learning the art of tracking magic. Concentrating with his eyes closed, he locates a bird, and with the help of magic, he shoots a stone swiftly to capture their lunch. Alfred is once more speechless by Well's abilities, and joins him as they enjoy a meal of roasted bird paired with homemade wasabi. Well proudly mentions gathering the ingredients from the forest, but Alfred advises him against venturing into the enchanted forest for food ingredients. He warns him about the monsters within that can easily take his life. A few days after that, Well learns water magic while claiming that Kurt is keeping an eye on him. Alfred thinks that he must have doubts about Well being a magic user and was afraid that he may lose his position. Well claims that he has no interest in becoming a lord while his teacher suggests him to be an adventurer. Well is immediately hooked on the idea and even imagines his future full of adventures, while Alfred secretly battles a curse, trying his best to stop it from ending his life. Later that day, Well informs his family about his plans to become an adventurer, but his dad doesn't have any money to put him in the Adventurer Academy. The next day, Well tells Alfred that he wants to start OnlyFans for his college fees, but Alfred tells him that he can join the Merchant Guild instead of being an online thought. He suggests Well to start working early and teaches him advanced magic like flying and teleportation so that he can go to other cities quickly. He gives Well an unforgettable experience as he takes him to the skies and shows him the vast world waiting for him. Later that night, Alfred realizes that his curse is getting stronger and he does not have much time left. He decides to bid farewell to his student the next day, declaring that he no longer needs to study under him. This news stuns Well and he falls on the ground as he is unable to focus on practicing flying magic. He does not want to part ways with his master so quickly and requests him to stay by his side. Alfred claims to have taught him everything he knew and sternly refuses to entertain his request. That night, Well can only think about his master at the dinner table, and then his dad tells him a rumor about an intelligent zombie called Whispering Undead being spotted in the forest. The Whispering Undead look like humans and can talk perfectly, so it was difficult to tell them apart from normal humans, and the only differences in their features were cold body, pale skin, and dull senses. This reminds him of Alfred, who has a very cold, pale skin and slow reactions. He flies into the forest to look for his master, but loses his balance and falls before he can find him. Alfred comes to him, and Well still cannot believe that he is dead. He claims that he is in danger if he stays in the forest and wants to take him to his home, but Alfred tells his student that he is the intelligent zombie that people are talking about, and Well is utterly devastated by that knowledge. Alfred recites his life story, saying that he was the court magician of the Duke 5 years ago. One day, the Duke's eldest son caught a deadly illness, so he assembled an army to enter the enchanted forest and find a rare medicinal herb. The monsters of the enchanted forest outnumbered them, and Alfred was the only strong fighter in the army who could face them. He had to protect the Duke and soldiers while fighting the monsters, and he lost his life while trying to cover their sorry ass. Alfred says that he should have stayed dead, but a regret did not let his soul pass away, and he became a whispering undead. His only incomplete wish was to find a worthy successor to inherit his magic, and that was fulfilled when he met Well. Alfred apologizes to him for not telling him the truth earlier because he thought he would be scared and run away. He then presents the final test before his student and asks him to purge him using holy magic before he loses his mind and turns into a real zombie. Well is in tears and refuses to let go of his teacher, but Alfred shows him that his body was rotting and he did not have much time left anyway. Well does not want to see him suffer, so he decides to use the holy magic and purify him. The magic stings Alfred, but it is not enough to satisfy his fetishes, and he wants Well to put more effort into it. Well gets overwhelmed by nostalgia as he remembers the past 2 weeks he has spent with his teacher and puts all his power into purifying magic. Alfred's body starts to dissolve, and he uses his last moments to thank his student and tells him to do his best in the future. Well mourns his teacher for a long time, but then wipes his tears as he swears to live up to his expectations. He keeps working hard on his magic and does not realize how quickly 7 years pass as he turns 12 years old. Well is finally ready to leave his poor home and family behind and sets out to join the Adventurer Academy to start his new life. He reaches the academy and gets admission in the scholarship class, with many promising rookies. Everyone introduces themselves, and 2 girls, Louise and Susan, are the center of attention because they come from families of prominent martial artists that serve the Duke. When Well's turn comes, he realizes that his communication skills have downgraded because of staying in a village for years, and he fumbles while introducing himself. No one seems to care about him, and he thinks it will be hard for him to make friends here. The class begins, and the instructor hands out party registration forms to everyone because that is how their training will start, and Well knows no one is going to choose a country bumpkin like him. However, he does not know that everyone is overestimating him as the only magician in their class with top-level skills. During the lunch break, the 2 rich girls, Louise and Susan, talk with their best friend Erwin about making the magician join their party because he can easily carry them. They claim to be the strongest in the class since they can use magic to reinforce their bodies and think that they are best suited to join Well's party. Other groups also call dibs on Well, but no one dares to approach him because they think he is a top G and won't talk to those below his standard. In the next class, the teacher announces that the students who want to do part-time jobs should try hunting as it pays the most. He advises them to hunt in groups as going solo may be dangerous, and Well is hopeless yet again because he is sure no one is going to choose him. The rich kids are nervous to approach him because Erwin is a delusional idiot who thinks Well is keeping his distance to evaluate all of them. Louise also agrees with him. They decide to come first in the hunting tournament to make themselves look worthy of joining his party. They hunt more than any other group in their class and think they have a good chance to join Well, but when he hands over a heap of dead monsters to the Merchant Guild receptionist, they are left stunned and speechless. One of the more pessimistic students says that Well is in a different league compared to them, and it is meaningless to try to be with him. Everyone believes his words, and they leave the room after giving up their hopes to join Well, who was planning to make some friends by treating his class to dinner with his prize money. As soon as he gets the bag, he turns around to ask his classmates to join him, but the room is as empty as my DMs. The rich kids are frustrated because of the humiliating defeat, and they do not want to give up on partying with Well as he is their golden ticket to a successful future. They want to hunt more prey than him to make him acknowledge them, and for that, they go to the forbidden part of the forest. They realize their mistake as a pack of wolves surrounds them, and despite their best efforts, the rich kids can't defeat the overwhelming number of monsters. A wolf launches a surprise attack on Louise and Erwin shields her, but he gets injured in the process. Seeing their formation crumble, all wolves jump on them to launch a combo attack, but luckily Well was also in the area and he had sensed his classmates using his tracking skills. He arrives at the scene at the right moment and takes all wolves down with rock pillars. Well rescues the trio and brings them to the hospital, where they apologize for being a burden on him and tell him how everyone thought of him as someone way above their league. He finally learns that they were rating him too high and put themselves in danger just to get his acknowledgement, but they claim to have learnt their place and declare themselves to be unworthy of being his teammates. Well wants to join their party, but before he can say anything, the instructor enters the room with good news and tells his students that the Duke has hosted a garden party for their class. The next day, they go to the party thrown by Duke Amadeus, who ignores everyone and approaches Well as soon as he sees him. They have a friendly chat about the Baumeister family being his vassals, and then he invites Well for a personal chat. Well still does not like going to a stranger's house alone, so he says that the rich kids are his party members and takes them with him. Inside the mansion, they meet the court magician Brant, who was also the teacher of the former court magician Alfred. Well is shocked to learn this, and Brant explains that he is an expert in tracking magic and kept an eye on Alfred even after he became a whispering undead in the Enchanted Forest near Well's home about 12 years ago. Brant knows that Alfred passed on 7 years ago, and the only way that could happen was if his wish to find a disciple more powerful than him was fulfilled. Everything points to Well, who cannot deny that he is Alfred's student after Brant recognizes his magic pouch. The magician and the Duke get emotional as they hear about Alfred's final moments, and Well also tears up remembering him. After that, he recalls that there are a lot of supplies from the expedition in the pouch that he wants to return to the Duke. While Well returns the supplies, the rich kids wait for him outside, and they still cannot believe the sad story they just heard, which makes them realize that just like them, Well is also a talented person, but can't become a successor since he is not the first son. Soon he comes running to them and apologizes for calling them his party so suddenly earlier. The rich kids say that they wanted to be in his party to take advantage of his power, but now they have realized that is not fair. Well replies that he does not mind and wants to join them because it will be fun hanging around them. The trio is initially shocked to hear his reason, but then they laugh it out as they accept Well as a friend. The Duke interrupts their chat and rewards Well with 1,000 gold coins for returning the supplies. Everyone is shocked to hear that, and the realization hits Well a little late. On top of that, Brant tells him that he has also inherited Alfred's mansion and his estate, and he shifts into the big and intimidating house that evening. He thinks the house is too much for just one person, and he decides to invite his friends to live here with him. A few months pass after that, and in the summer vacations, Well takes his friends to attend his brother Eric's wedding. They travel on a magic airship, where Louise is dressed like Lady Gaga as she wants to attract the attention of nobles at the wedding, and Erwin is terrified of the flying ship like a caveman who has never seen one before. Brant is there too. He makes full use of complimentary drinks on the airship. He tells Erwin that the plane will not fall, but then he sees dark clouds next to the ship and takes back his statement. He points Well to the clouds, and a giant skeleton dragon comes out of it, causing everyone to shit their pants. The rest of the passengers turn into Karens and demand to see the captain to talk about this incident, but the co-pilot tells them that the great magician Brant will help them beat the undead dragon. Brant tells him it is impossible because only holy magic can purify the undead, and he has no talent for it. However, he claims to know a talented magician who uses holy magic and puts Well up to the task. He agrees to fight the dragon despite being nervous, and Brant stays behind to protect the ship. Wella flies to the dragon and uses his magic barrier to shield himself from its destructive breath, and Brant protects the ship with his magic barrier. Well charges his holy magic, but the dragon switches to melee attacks to stop him. Well dodges his attacks and concentrates holy magic like a spirit bomb and then yeets it towards the bone dragon. His holy magic pushes the dragon's breath back and hits it. The dragon lights up like a Christmas tree and wiggles in pain because of the purification magic and uses its remaining strength to attack Well, who dodges and blocks the attacks till his magic finally works and the dragon loses its soul. The bones fall apart and the giant magic stone holding them together comes undone too. From inside the ship, Brant makes a gang sign telling Well to collect the dragon bones in his magic pouch. He collects the bones and the captivating red magic stone too. As Well gets back to the ship, everyone parties to celebrate their survival, but he wants to relax for a few days after this. Soon, Brant's former adventurer partner Arturo comes there and tells Well that he won't get a chance to take a break. Rand is surprised to see his friend and introduces him to Well, and they talk about their adventuring days. The next day, the ship reaches the capital city and Brant runs away immediately after landing, leaving Arturo in charge of babysitting. Soon, an order of knights comes there, and their captain thanks Well for slaying the dragon and asks him to accompany them to the palace as the king has summoned him. His friends ditch him and go to his brother's place, while Well is left with Arturo, who accompanies him to the palace. He gets a grand welcome as the dragon-slaying hero, but the nobles are not pleased with him being the center of attention. Well greets the king, who commends him for defeating the skeleton dragon and awards him the Twin Dragon Medal. Additionally, he makes him a noble by granting him the title of a baronet, and Well recites the pledge Arturo taught him earlier. Later, the king buys all the dragon bones and magic stones from Well, and the general and prime minister argue about what should be a fair price for them. The general wants to pay Well a higher reward, but the prime minister complains that they don't have the budget for it. Before their argument escalates, the pope meddles in between, and the reward is settled at 150,000 gold coins. Later that evening, they return from the palace after collecting the reward, and a spear martial artist puts on a roadshow to impress Well so that he may hire him. The guards drag him away, and Arturo tells Well to get used to such idiots because they will keep coming after him. He even warns him about the nobles who will try to push their daughters on him, and Well does not want that to happen. The next day, he finally reaches Eric's wedding, and the two brothers who left home with him are there too. They complain that Kurt has not sent any gifts for the bride and the groom, and at this rate, their family will look bad in front of the guests. Well decides to pay for the gifts himself and realizes that being a noble is more about showing off than having money, but he is happy that his favorite brother is married now. The next day, the Pope invites Well to his house and he visits him with a donation of 200 gold coins. The Pope is impressed by his business sense and immediately hits it off with Well, and they talk about religion and baptism as a pretty girl comes in with tea and captivates Well's heart. The Pope introduces the girl as his granddaughter Elise, and just by looking at her, Well can tell that she is able to use magic. The Pope says that Elise can use holy healing magic and often helps the poor at the church, which has earned her the title of saint. Elise is a nun in training, but her grandfather does not want her to join the church and wants to find a suitable groom for her. Well jokes that her beauty will lead to a fierce competition among boys, and maybe he could also join them. He keeps on laughing at his joke, but then realizes that no one else finds it funny. The Pope, however, takes his words at their face value and says that he accepts him as his granddaughter's fiancé. Well is speechless because he realizes that he got engaged to Elise within a minute of meeting her, and there is no going back now. When he returns home, his friends dress him like a clown on hearing that he went to get baptized and returned engaged. They also think that Elise is great wife material, and Well learns that there is no concept of romantic marriages in this world, and he was lucky to even see the girl before things were decided. Then his new sister-in-law completes his makeup, and Well goes outside dressed like a complete bitch nugget so that people don't recognize him as the hotshot noble. Erwin is with him, and he constantly teases his friend about his future wife, and Well wonders what Elise really thinks about him. Later, they go to the market, where the spear fanatic identifies Well through his disguise with his pro-stalker abilities. He starts showing off his spear skills right there, and everyone joins him in the quest to get Well's attention and become his retainer. He teleports back to his home and removes his clown getup as Erwin and Eric tell him to get a retainer who can block all the unwanted candidates. Erwin suggests that he could hire him, and Well likes the idea, so he immediately hires his friend as his retainer, who cannot believe what just happened. Well does not care to elaborate and goes straight to see his fiancée, but teleports outside her grandfather's window. He falls down and stays there till the old Pope goes back to his office, but soon Elise finds him lying there and he takes her to the rooftop to talk to her in private. He nervously asks her what she felt about their engagement, and Elise replies that she is happy to be the wife of the heroic dragon slayer. That is good enough for Well, and he spends some quality time with his fiancée. Back home, Erwin has become arrogant as he is the only one with a job in his party, and he bosses over Louise and Susan as he tells them that he will ask Well to hire them as his juniors. The girls don't want to live their life under him and want a way to get above him somehow. Just then, they see Eric getting lovey-dovey with his wife, and Louise suggests that they should also try to become Well's wife, and if he can't have more than one wife, they will aim to be his side chicks. Susan does not mind the idea either, and the two girls begin celebrating their wonderful future, where they won't have to work after marrying rich. Well returns as they are in the middle of their delusional parade, and Louise tries to seduce him by doing a stupid Fortnite dance, but he gets irritated by it and leaves the room. She does not give up and prepares harder at night, but Susan is shy and can't keep up with her. Well is outside their window, and you can listen to their awkward conversation as he receives a dinner invitation from the Pope's butler. The next evening, he goes to the Pope's mansion and has a fancy private dinner with Elise, but they are both awkward and know nothing to say. Well wants to leave as soon as he is done eating, but the butler suggests him to take his girl out shopping on the first date. He meant shopping for an engagement ring, and Well finds himself in a shop with overpriced jewelry. Elise tells him that he does not need to waste so much money on her, but a simple ring catches Well's eyes and he plans to gift it to his fiancée. When he learns that it is a magic ring that will cost him 300 gold coins, he wonders if it was made by Apple, but he needs to act cool in front of Elise and buys the ring without bargaining. They get back in the carriage where Elise praises his choice, saying that he must have known about the magic ring before choosing it, and he replies that he just thought it would look pretty on her. She is awestruck and Well gets candid with her, saying that he feels burdened when everyone calls him a hero and he has to live up to their expectations, but he feels like himself around her. He decides to charge the ring with his magic power, and it starts glowing and creates a disco night inside the carriage, and seeing Well's smile gives Elise butterflies in her stomach. A few days have passed since then, and Louise and Susan are discussing their plans to seduce Well with Erwin, when Elise comes to meet her future husband. She learns that he is not here right now as the king has summoned him for a mission. The king orders Well to slay a dragon, and although he is shocked by the scale of the mission, he can't refuse orders from his boss. The Knight Captain explains the land development plan to Well and Brant, but to get the land, they need to get the native dragon and monsters out of the picture. Only powerful magicians can counter a dragon's breath, so Well and Brant were chosen to be on this mission alongside a third teammate, who's a bulky warrior with a funky mohawk. Well is creeped out by the level 99 extrovert and gym freak, who burns with passion to hunt the dragon. He thinks that the buff guy must be a warrior, but Brant tells him that the man is Armstrong, the palace magician with a tank's build. They fly off to the dragon's location immediately under Armstrong's lead and unite with the army there. Soon, Well's party also learns about this mission, and they are commissioned to join the fight to wipe out the small monsters in the area after the dragon was dealt with. Well's temporary army for this mission comprises all the warriors who want to catch his eye, with Erwin as their reluctant commander. They reach the military base after Well, and soon Elise joins them as a healer, but she cannot see her fiancé because he has already left to fight the dragon. Well, Brand and Armstrong are at the dragon's den, and Armstrong's loud roar causes it to crumble down. The dragon wakes up and lets out a roar full of rage, making Well's hair stand on the edge. Armstrong starts the fight by using his magic to turn into a Power Ranger. He wears a magic armor and manifests a huge hammer, using which he thrashes the dragon and tosses it to the ground. Brant tells Well to do his part before the big guy runs out of magic, and he uses a powerful wind spell to kill the dragon as Armstrong keeps it pinned. Well collects the dragon's body as his loot, but then Brant tells him that they cannot afford to relax as an overwhelming number of monsters will go out of control now that the dragon has been defeated. The battle with the monsters begins on both sides, and the people in Well's army get injured badly. Elise's run rag trying to heal the injured soldiers all day, and after her magic depletes, she uses the power stored in her ring. She gets to hear the heroics of her fiancé from the soldiers, and that is what keeps her motivated. At dawn, the messenger arrives and declares that the battle is finally over and all monsters have been killed, but then another man says that Well is injured. Elise is worried and runs to see him, but he is perfectly fine, so she gets too happy and faints. She later wakes up in the shade of a tree with Well beside her, and he has also heard stories about how she treated the soldiers and gave them courage. They have a touching moment where Elise tells Well how worried she was for him. And just then Armstrong comes rushing to them and lifts Elise up, telling the flabbergasted Well that she is his niece. After the success of the mission, Well is promoted to the rank of Baron and gets another Dragon Slayer medal. The king has ordered him to move to the capital, and he is in the middle of packing his stuff, when Elise comes to join him and declares that she is going to live with him in the capital home. Louise and Susan find this a terrible news for their plan to become Well's concubines, and think it will be hard to seduce him now. They had no idea that Elise thought that they were already engaged to Well as they lived with him, but he clarifies that there is no such thing going on between them. He He takes his chance and asks her how she will feel if she has some side pieces, and Ellis says that this is a perfectly normal thing in the noble society. Louise and Susan know they won't find a better chance and declare their intention to marry Well, and with Elise giving him the green light, he expands his harem. A few months later, another one of Well's brothers gets married, and at the wedding, Eric tells him about the martial arts tournament held in the capital once every 3 years. Well is not interested because there is no category for magicians in the tournament, but his brothers say that he must do it as a noble. Well says that he will register as a swordsman and use magic to strengthen his body, but he learns that that is not allowed either. He is dejected but still decides to go take part in the swordsmanship category, as his brothers keep on insisting. His friends also learn about the tournament from Brant, who tells them to participate for their family's honor. Louise and Susan know they can't use magic to buff their bodies like usual, so they get to training immediately, but Erwin is chilling as he already has a secure job. Brant warns him that if he is useless, Well may kick him out of the party and fire him as a retainer, and Erwin is overwhelmed by doubts. At night, Well tells everyone that Ellis wants to join their party as a healer, and he also mentions that the reigning champion of the tournament is not participating to give other people a chance. Erwin thinks that he can win the contest in that case and starts training in earnest. The next morning, Erwin leaves everyone behind in training, and Well is the weakest one in the group. He sucks at running and pull-ups and can't even use his sword properly, so he gives up on training. His friends keep practicing day in and day out, but when Well tells them that the reigning champion is participating in the tournament again, Erwin gets depressed and demotivated. He feels like giving up and stops training even as Louise and Susan try to call him out. When he goes to talk to Well about it, he learns that Elise was training hard in secret to not become a hindrance to their party with her weak physique. This gives Erwin the motivation pump he needed, and he starts training hard again. Soon the day of the tournament comes, and Well's first match is with the defending champion, who is also the Knight Captain. Well knows there is no hope to win, so he wants to at least not get humiliated in front of the crowd. The battle begins, and the Knight Captain knocks him out with the hilt of his sword in one split second, and Well shamelessly goes back to his magician buddies. There he drinks tea with his fiancée as they wait for their friends to finish their fights. Everyone fights well, and Louise is the first one to return after losing in the preliminary semi-final. Susan has reached the final round of the preliminary contest, and her opponent is the spear fanatic who always seeks Well's attention. He plans to defeat the girl so that he can get into Well's pants, or rather in his party. Susan finds that he is much stronger and skilled than her, and loses to him quickly and returns to her friends. She wants to tell Well about the multi-talented spear fanatic whose name is Roderick, since he can be very helpful to him. But Well is sleeping right now as Elise did not let him get much sleep last night. On the other hand, Erwin has reached the finals but has injured his arm in the semi-final round, and his opponent in the final is the Knight Captain. As he is receiving treatment in the back room, the doctor tells him to give up for his own good, but he doesn't want to get kicked out of the party. His friends are there too, and they give him the lunchbox sent by Well, which was his way of wishing them the best. Realizing that Well is not going to kick him out even if he loses, Erwin decides to fight for the honor of his friend. He obviously loses, but his skills impress the Knight Captain, who decides to mentor him and Susan under his wing. Later, Well and Louise also find a mentor to teach them martial arts, and Well has a bad feeling as she leads him to a desolate area. There, Well's fears come true as he learns that their mentor is his old friend Armstrong, who promises to make them as strong as One Punch Man if they keep up with his basic training. 3 years pass in a flash, and now Well is an adult after turning 15 years old. He can finally start his life as an adventurer with his friends, and he is excited to do something fun for the first time in 3 years. Before today, he was just a landless noble who had to be available at every request of the king, and he thinks he can finally enjoy his freedom now. Just then, Brant comes to them with an order from the Adventurers Guild and says that they have been assigned a mission to explore an ancient dungeon. Brant is going to act as their advisor since the mission is dangerous, and he takes Well and his party to the place where they defeated the dragon a few years ago. He shows them a deep pit and leads them inside as he tells them that the Adventurers Guild had sent many groups to explore the dungeon before, but no one ever returned from this place, and the guild estimated that there was a dragon inside. Therefore, they called Well's party Dragon Busters, but ironically, everyone is scared of dragons and hides behind Well. Soon they spot a door and enter an empty room with a magic circle on the floor. Brant realizes something is wrong in this room and tells everyone to run, but the door automatically shuts itself before they can move. The magic circle on the floor activates and traps them in their place before teleporting them away one by one. Luckily, they end up in the same place, which is actually at the bottom of the dungeon. Brant has heard about ancient civilizations' traps that force intruders to climb to the surface while fighting monsters on their way, and he thinks that this is the same thing. Louise tells Well to just teleport them out of here, but he can't do that, as the teleportation magic doesn't work unless he has a clear idea of his starting point and his destination. After Elise recovers from the teleportation shock, the party uses the old-fashioned way and takes stairs to climb up the dungeon. They come to a huge room with an army of Gollum soldiers, and the door shuts behind them as the Gollum army starts to wake up. Will wants to blow them all flashily, but his friends stop him and tell him to save his powers for fighting the boss. They decide to show off the results of their training and take down the Golems easily. Brant supports them by blocking the Golems' attacks with wind magic and tells Will to do the same. Susan takes down the leader of the Golems and disorients them, while Louise uses a magic shockwave to deal area damage, and Erwin charges ahead and steamrolls his enemies. They finally defeat all the Golems in the room and then spot the remains of the adventurers who came to this place before. Louise has sharp senses, and she hears some sounds coming from the stairs, so she goes to check it out and finds more Golems coming towards them from the upper floor. Will and his party have no time to rest and get busy fighting again. Many days pass in the same fashion, and they keep fighting the Golems without a break. The continuous fighting and almost no rest takes a toll on everyone, and they are worn out after each floor. They still make their way up and defeat hordes of Golems on every floor and eventually reach an empty hall. They celebrate, thinking that they have cleared the dungeon, but Brant notices a giant mechanical dragon in the center of the hall and warns everyone just as it wakes up. The dragon attacks them with its blast breath, but Brant blocks it with his magic barrier and Will supports him. At the same time, Gollum soldiers come from the entrance behind them and stab Susan. The boss battle begins with Erwin and Louise fighting against the Golems and Alice healing Susan, while the two magicians block the dragon's deadly breath. Will knows their magic won't last long at this late, and he suggests a plan to combine their powers to crush the dragon quickly. Brant agrees, and he channels all this power into Will's body so that he can release a powerful magic beam that pushes the dragon's breath back. Brant soon runs out of magic and falls down, but he sees the reflection of his previous student in Will, who keeps on fighting the dragon alone. Not long after that, Will also starts losing his power, and as he is about to taste defeat, Ellis runs to him and blushes as she says she will use a special magic on him now. She suddenly kisses him and rejuvenates his stamina and magic, but uses up all her energy in doing that and faints. Will holds her, but then realizes that he is turbocharged with the power of love, and his magic beam overpowers the dragon's breath and hits its head, destroying its circuit and deactivating it. As the boss is defeated, the Gollum soldiers also stop moving, and Will collapses before he can celebrate his victory with his friends. His friends take him and Elise to a restroom, and the girls say that Elise did not need to kiss Will to heal him, she just wanted to kiss him in case they were going to die. Soon, Erwin comes to take Louise and Susan to show them something exciting, and despite being too tired to entertain his nonsense, they go with him. Will wakes up because of their commotion and helps his fiancée up too, and they go to Brant, who's in a library in the room next to theirs. He has found out that a great magician of the ancient civilization made this dungeon as a test to find someone worthy of receiving his legacy. Will doesn't understand what could be so valuable to set up such an elaborate test to protect it, but his friends are about to show him just that. They take him to a hangar with 7 ancient magic airships, which formed the base behind most of their modern magic technology. Brant says that it was the discovery of the century, and they are looking at millions of gold coins even if they lowball it. Erwin then pulls a lever and opens a gate that leads out of the hangar, and everyone is happy to leave behind the dungeon. Soon, Will and his party go before the king and present everything they found in the dungeon to him. The king buys everything they found, while the Magic Guild purchases the forced teleportation circle. Now it is time to get their reward money, and the Prime Minister stutters as he declares that everyone in Will's party will receive 2 million gold coins for successfully completing this mission. Since the kingdom did not have it in cash right now, it will be paid in installments over 20 years, and Will gets a panic attack thinking about the taxes he will have to pay. With this much money, he decides to move out of the capital and go back to the Academy City, his old mansion. Will tells of his plans to Armstrong, who wishes him good luck for the future. He also tells him that while he was exploring the dungeon, people were spreading rumors about his death in the capital. Will has heard this bit for the first time, and he asks why would anyone do that. Armstrong says that he is suffering from success as he got too rich too quickly, and now people are jealous of him. Will's friends agree, saying that most people are jealous of them for being the Dragon Slayer's party members, and they fear that it will get more intense because of the reward they are receiving. None of them want the hassle that comes with money, so Susan takes out the Adventurer Guild rulebook and says that they can redistribute the reward they received for the mission. Louise and Erwin also agree with her, and they plan to give their share to Will, asking him to pay them back in form of salary and gifts. Susan asks Elise what she is planning to do with her reward, and she says everything she owns belongs to her future husband. Just like that, Will now sits on 10 million gold coins, and he thinks more people are going to be jealous of him now. The news of Will's safe return reaches Rucker, the noble who started these rumors. He thinks that even though the boy returned from the dungeon, his enemies have now united and they can harm him in more direct ways. A few days later, Will is enjoying tea with his friends when he notices someone outside the window. He fears that there can be a thief or an assassin after him, so he decides to hire a guard to protect his mansion when he moves to the Academy City. His friends also like the idea and say that the guard must be strong, loyal to Will and good at managing things, and only one person comes to their mind with such qualities. Susan tells Will that he should hire the spear fanatic Roderick, and even though he is shocked, Will decides to see if he still wants to work with him after years of being in friend zone. He invites Roderick to their house and asks him if he wants to join them as a retainer, and he starts crying because he never expected this day to come. The stalker is still around the house and everyone notices her when she starts drooling after seeing them eat cake. Louise and Roderick try to catch her and Erwin keeps Will's face down to protect him from the danger, but the girl is too fast and escapes them. Roderick says that she must be sent by the same men who spread rumors about Will's death, and he asks his permission to investigate the matter. He also advises him to leave the capital immediately for his safety, but Will has some more things to do here. The next day, he goes to the Magic Guild research lab with his party because he has heard that they repurposed the magic teleportation circle he found in the dungeon into a device that can summon anything the user thinks of. Erwin says that this machine is an underwear thief's biggest dream, and Louise and Susan hit him. Will ignores their commotion and stands in the magic circle to test it out and imagines what he wants. The magic circle starts working and brings forth what he was imagining, and it turns out to be one of the lab assistant's underwear, who smacks Will and snatches it away. Will's girls are embarrassed that he chose someone else and not them, but he blames Erwin for corrupting his innocent mind. Elwin accepts the blame, and after calming down, Will goes for round 2 and his girls clutch their clothes just in case. However, he is successful this time and summons just what he wanted and takes it outside the lab on a wheelbarrow. The stalker is there too, and she smells something edible in the carriage before Will teleports his group back home. She follows Will to his house, where he is throwing a party for everyone who helped him before leaving the capital. As everyone enjoys the food and drinks, Will brings out his latest dish, tuna with soy sauce, and says that he caught the fish using the magic tool. The guests are doubtful about eating raw fish, but since Will insists, they have a bite and find it tasty. Seeing everyone enjoy the fish, the stalker starts to drool and has a hard time controlling herself. Just then, Roderick returns from his mission and informs Will that the Prime Minister's brother Rucker was behind the rumors. Roderick believes that Rucker wants to overtake his elder brother and become the Prime Minister, and he was trying to do it by harming the people close to the Prime Minister. He has even sent a message to Will's family to tell them about his supposed death, and he wants Kurt's children to inherit his title and property so that they stay indebted to him forever. Will wants to do something about the nasty man, but Roderick has already dealt with him by spreading fake rumors that Rucker conspired to kill Will in the dungeon, and now the king was going to interrogate him. Will says that this is a bit too much, but Roderick says that he has personal reasons to go after him. Rucker is Roderick's illegitimate father, who refused to recognize him or his mother after getting her pregnant. Roderick knows his father is a certified scumbag, and that is why he was the first person he decided to investigate, and his guess proved correct. As they discuss their respective family troubles, Elise comes there with tuna for Roderick, and the stalker cannot control her hunger pangs anymore. She bangs on the door loudly, and everyone is on their guard to fight the intruder, but as she enters the house by ripping the door apart, they are too astonished to do anything. She aggressively heads towards Will, and when Erwin tries to stop her, she slams him to the ground. She runs towards Will again, and he flinches, fearing that she is after his life, but the girl just picks up the plate of tuna and starts eating it. Just then, the general comes and apologizes for his daughter's rude behavior and introduces her as Wilma. She says that she was investigating Will for the past few days to see if he could feed her well, and he passed her test. Wilma has no hesitation and she asks Elise for seconds, while her father explains her perpetual hunger to Will. Brandt says that the girl suffers from hero syndrome. That means there is always magic running through her body and giving her incredible strength, but also burning enormous amounts of calories. Wilma proves that as she carries a tuna fish to the hall and effortlessly snaps it into 2. That is why she needs to eat constantly, and the general thinks Will can cover that cost if he takes her as a bodyguard or as a wife. This is more abrupt than his engagement with Elise, and Will claims that he is going to live as an ordinary adventurer and hunt small animals. He says that he has no need for such a strong bodyguard, but the general says he is not going to live like an ordinary adventurer. He has heard from his informants that Duke Amadeus plans to make him hunt monsters in his territory, and Wilma will be a perfect addition to his party. The Duke is surprised by his intelligence network, and then comes clean with Will and asks him to take a mission for him. On the other hand, the messenger Rucker sent to Will's home about his rumored death has reached Kurt, and his wife, Amelie. They are shocked to hear about Will's death, and the letter says that Rucker wants Kurt's children to inherit Will's title and property and join his faction. This news is a pleasant shock for Kurt, and he starts laughing on hearing about this opportunity. However, Amelie screams as she sees something outside the window, and Kurt decides to take a look too. As soon as he looks outside, he turns pale from shock as if he saw a ghost, when it is only Will and his party there. They are there to discuss the Duke's plan with the Lord of the Territory, and Brant does the talking with Will's father. He starts talking about the expedition led by the previous Duke into the Enchanted Forest 15 years ago, where the 2,000 soldiers he was leading died. Will's father knows of that incident as he also sent a troop of soldiers to help the Duke. Brant tells him that all those dead soldiers have turned into zombies and Will and his team are here to purify them. Kurt has a ton of attitude for someone with no money, and he says that they will not provide them any assistance with this. Brant says that they do not need it, and are here to discuss the terms of the mission, and Kurt demands them to pay tribute to him for working in his land. He asks the village chief the standard rate of commission, and after learning that it is 30%, he demands Will to pay 50% of their cut. His younger brother Herman tries to convince Kurt to not be such an asshole, because they can retrieve the belongings of the dead soldiers sent from their region too. Kurt is adamant that he will not go below 50% and says that their poor soldiers had nothing worth retrieving anyway and their funerals had already been held. Elise interrupts him and says that the souls of the deceased are still trapped in their bodies and they won't achieve peace unless they are freed, and offers to conduct a proper funeral for them. Kurt says that there is no need for that and accuses Elise for being after the feast for the funeral. Erwin had been holding himself back while listening to Kurt's bullshit earlier, and he finally lashes out at him, asking him to mind his attitude. Kurt taunts him and Will, asking him if all his retainers are ruffians like this, and Will barely holds Erwin back from snapping his brother's neck. He has also had enough of Kurt's meddling and turns to his dad, who is the real lord here, and asks him about the negotiations. Kurt is furious on being sidelined and he snaps out again, and this time Louise and Susan tell him to watch his tone when talking to a baron. This makes him even more furious, and Will thinks his brother is like the toxic clients from his past life. Later, Will and his party have dinner with Harmon and his wife Marlena, who tell Will that after he gained fame as the famous dragon-slaying hero, Kurt lost his mind. He's been paranoid ever since and thinks that Will is here to steal his right to the territory. Everyone else enjoys the dinner, but as Harmon tries to serve alcohol to Brant, he refuses the offer and only eats the nuts he has brought with him. Later, Marlena requests Will to bring back her grandfather's belongings as he was also part of the expedition, and he promises to try his best. She thanks him, stating that he should become the next lord instead of the imbecile Kurt, and doesn't even care about what anyone else will think. Will realizes that it is the uncomfortable succession struggle his master warned him about, and he wants to leave his home as soon as he completes the work. The next day, he starts the mission and goes to the Enchanted Forest to taunt the undead by throwing playground insults at them. Elise asks if such silly insults will work, and Brand assures her that even though zombies are idiots, they still know when they are being mocked, and soon the sky turns dark and the zombies appear from all directions. Ellis takes out a cloth with a magic circle drawn in it, and she and Will pour their magic into it to create a purification barrier. They make it as wide as they can, and as soon as the zombies touch the barrier, they are purged and their bodies vanish, leaving only their armor behind. Erwin complains that they are not getting any action, and Brant tells him and everyone else to retrieve the armor, because that is their only role right now. Soon, the leader of the army of the undead, the former Duke, comes there himself, and he is also easily purified. Will asks if they are done with everyone, but Wilma reminds him that Marlena's grandpa is still left, and they wait for him. Suddenly, a zombie wyvern attacks them from the sky, and Louise saves the clueless Erwin as Wilma stands in front of the monster. She attacks it with her giant axe and cuts its head, and the monster gets purged after being decapitated. After the wyvern, undead boar monsters also attack them, and some of the larger ones resist the purification magic and enter the barrier, giving Will's party members something to do. They beat the monster to get purified after being defeated, and after some time, all zombies are dealt with. Everyone is exhausted as Will and Alice remove the barrier, but then the last of the human zombies comes there, and from his armor, Will can tell it is Marlena's grandpa. He and Elise go to deal with him, but the zombie speaks up and asks about his granddaughter. Everyone is shocked, and Brant tells them that the zombie has evolved into a lich. However, when Will tells the old man that his granddaughter is living happily with her husband, he is content and drops his sword. He does not resist as Elise purifies him and vanishes without leaving even his armor behind. Will takes the belongings of the soldiers back to the village, where people get emotional to receive keepsakes of their dead relatives. They thank Will for what he did, but then Kurt comes there and declares that all armor was to be returned to him after everyone was done weeping. He wants to melt everything and use the metal to make tools for development, and the people plead with him to let them bury the armor in place of their dead relatives. Kurt rudely refuses, and Well stands up to his brother and tells him that he was going too far. Kurt replies that he cares for the development of the land more than some dead commoners, and for that he needs iron. Well says that if he just needs iron, he can have the iron cube in his pouch and leave the villagers alone. Kurt is startled and falls to the ground, but when his lackeys ask him what they should do now, he tells them to wait for Well to leave the village. Well returns to the capital the very next day and delivers the soldier's armor to Amadeus, who says that he will return the belongings to the family of the dead soldiers, but it will take some time. Until then, Well is ordered to stand by in his village. Well does not want to spend a single moment there, but he has to follow the orders, and even Brant tells him to enjoy his stay in his childhood home. He teleports back home when the village chief is surprised to see him again, and then invites his party to attend the mass funeral being held tomorrow. At the funeral, Elis prays for the dead soldiers because she is the celebrity priest. The villagers are grateful to her, but they are furious that Kurt did not show up to pay his respect. Later, the villagers throw a party where everyone enjoys themselves, and Brant still refuses to drink and keeps munching on his nuts. Soon, Kurt's wife Amelie and their children come to offer their prayers at the funeral site, and Well greets his sister-in-law. His nephews are really excited to meet him as they have heard stories of their dragon slayer uncle, and they want to know how he did it. Well's friends decide to put up a skit to entertain the kids, with Erwin playing the Bone Dragon, Louise acting as Brant, and Susan getting the lead role of Well. After the play is over, Well treats his nephews to sweets and then wishes them good night. After that, the village chief comes to talk to him in private and requests Well to become the next lord as most people want it. Well is flustered and says that he can't do that as it is Kurt's birthright, but the village chief does not care about him or the current lord and insists that their land has no future under their rule. Well says that he does not want to be a lord in the first place and wants to live as an adventurer, but the chief knows that his retainer Roderick is skilled in handling things like this, which will keep Well free for doing whatever he wants. He offers the boy his full support and says that even the royal palace wants him to take over this land. Just as the chief finishes talking, Brant comes there and compliments his sharp wits for deducing everything without being told anything. He confirms that the king indeed wants Well to take over this area and become its new lord. Brant takes Well to discuss the plan in private and says that the previous kings have wanted to develop this region for a long time, but the lords here have all been ordinary and incompetent. Kurt was as incompetent as humans can be, and he was a scumbag on top of that, so the king was forced to take strict measures. However, he could not simply order Well's father to change his hair, so he hatched a plan with his trusted officials. They want to make Kurt go crazy so that he would attack Well, but then he would be subdued and arrested. The current lord will take responsibility for his hair's outrage and resign, clearing Well's path to become the new lord. The Duke had the undead purification mission, so it became the perfect decoy to execute the real plan. Well asks Brant why he did not tell this to him before, and he replies that it was because things would turn out the same way even if he knew everything. Well says that this plan can be dangerous, but Brant assures him that he was keeping an eye on everyone to ensure there is no problem, and had gone as far as to stop drinking for a couple of days to stay in peak condition. Well is still unsure about being a lord, but Brant tells him that he has the power, influence, and money to develop this region, and there is no one better suited to this role. The next day, Well tells his friends about the palace's plan, and they think that it is a good idea and suggest Well to stop agonizing over it and accept the orders like he usually does. Soon, Amelie and her sons pay Well a visit, and being the cool magician uncle, he shows them some neat tricks by creating water balls and mini rainbows. Well's friends pity the innocent kids, thinking that once their father is removed from his position, they will lose their noble titles and may even get exiled. At night, Well and his friends are having dinner with Herman when they hear people shouting outside and find a group of discontented villagers who are going to the current lord to ask him to name Well as his heir. They are not afraid of punishment because they are already fed up with Kurt's unfair rule. Seeing them so serious about the issue, Well asks them to give him some time, and they are surprised to learn that he is going to stay here longer because they had heard rumors that he was going to leave tomorrow. Brad realizes that the village chief was behind this, and he goes to meet him and warns him to be careful about meddling in someone else's plan. He claims that the chief is not doing the wrong things, but the palace does not like anyone acting freely. The village chief thanks him for the warning, but he is already determined to do what is good for his village, and before leaving, he tells Brant to beware of Amelie. As Brant goes back to the mansion, he finds Well wondering about Kurt's fate after he is removed from his position. He can only think of him getting exiled, but Brant tells him that the palace will not let him live to tell the tale. Now Will is worried because he does not want to see his brother die, and the next morning, he goes to talk to him. He proposes a deal to Kurt, asking him to give him some land when he becomes the Lord, and in exchange, he promises to give him funds to develop his territory. Well says that this is a win-win solution and marks out the undeveloped land on the map that he wants. Kurt is furious and shreds the map as he accuses Well of trying to cunningly take his place as the next Lord. Well says that he has no such intentions and warns him about the growing discontent, but Kurt is angry and tells him to get out immediately. Outside the room, Well meets Amelie and her sons, and she wants to talk to him outside. Well tells her that he wanted a happy ending for everyone, but now he doesn't know how to get it. Amelie replies that she only cares about her children and wants them to be safe and happy, and that is why she was getting close to Well, because her husband has no future. She asks Well how he feels about being a stepfather, and he tells her that he has more than enough women already. The meeting with Kurt and Amelie leaves him uncertain about what he should do, but Well comes up with a unique solution to his dilemma. As he is making mayo with his friends, Well tells them that he has decided to become the Lord after considering everything, but he will not follow the script decided by the palace. He is determined to not let anyone die, and for that he needs his friends' help, and they promise to always be by his side. The next day, Well and his friends set up a mini market in the village where they sell mayo and all types of fancy clothes and wares that can be found only in the capital. The people are drawn to their shops because they have much better items than the shops around here, and Kurt's lackeys are furious to see their customers getting stolen. They go to Kurt and cry for help, but he can only throw a rage fit, as he is also helpless against a magician like Well. As the lackeys leave for their homes after the meeting, Well teleports in front of them and his friends surround them from all sides. The next day, Kurt learns that his supporters were bought out by his brother, who bribed them with a paid vacation to the capital, and they took his offer and abandoned Kurt. Well visits the capital and tells Roderich about his plan to reduce his brother's political strength by stealing his supporters, and then they go for apartment shopping. Well wants to give a peaceful house to Amelie and her two sons after he becomes the Lord, and as for Kurt, he plans to send him to the church and let him live away from the palace's reach. However, they do not know that Rucker is planning something evil, and he sends a gift to Kurt to face his magician brother. Rucker's messenger finds Kurt alone in the rain, contemplating murder after Well bought all his lackeys. He offers him the gift sent by his lord and says that it is a legendary item called the Dragon Flute, which can help him kill his magician brother. Kurt wants to know why Rucker is giving him such a precious thing and learns that he wants the right to the undeveloped land. Seeing their goals aligned, Kurt accepts the offer and goes to the forest, where Well and his party are already waiting for him. Rand senses that Kurt is looking for them alone, and it means he has got something that gives him the confidence to face them. Well decides to face his brother and acts like it is a coincidence that they are meeting here, but Kurt already knows that his retainers are hiding in the bushes and calls them out. He insults Well for no reason and gradually starts acting like a psycho, telling him that no matter how amazing he is, he can't inherit the land because he is the 8th son. Kurt then shows them the dragon flute he received from Rucker and threatens to blow it if even one of them moves. Brant recognizes the dragon flute, which is a legendary item that can summon an army of dragons, and he is sure that not even their group can deal with so many dragons at once. Well's friends tell Kurt that he is stupid, and if the dragons come here, he will die too, but he laughs, saying that the dragons won't harm the user of the flute. Well tries to make him think about the people and his family, but he calls them traitors. He doesn't even care about his wife and children, and says that once he kills Well and takes all his money, he will have no shortage of gold diggers coming after him. Well realizes that his brother is an irredeemable scumbag, and he wants to attack him, but Kurt threatens to blow the flute, but flinches and Kurt laughs at him, saying that seeing a genius magician terrified was the best sight in the world. He tells him that everyone's death will be on him for trying to become the successor, and then pulls the flute to his lips. Brant launches a surprise attack at Kurt, but the flute blocks it and he smiles, assured of his victory. Kurt blows the flute and the sky turns dark as ghosts come out from the ground and surround him, but there is no sign of dragons. Well still wants to help his brother, but Wilma stops him from going close as she gets an uneasy feeling from him. Eliz also realizes that the ghosts were brimming with menace, and that makes Brant realize that Kurt did not blow the dragon flute, but the flute of menace. He was wondering how a nobody like him could get a legendary item, and it turned out that he was fooled by the person who sent the flute to him. The Flute of Malice draws ghosts from the surroundings and turns its user into a powerful undead to defeat the enemy in a suicide attack. On hearing this, Will is worried that his brother is going to die, but Kurt is already possessed by the ghosts. His malice combines with theirs, and he gets furious at Well for taking everything away from him. His vision turns red as the ghosts gather around him and consume him, turning him into a giant monster. Well is terrified of the giant monster with his brother at its core, and Brant tells him to use his holy magic to defeat it quickly. However, Will is gripped by terror and cannot move, so Elise protects him by blocking the monster's punch. She wants to purify the monster, but her magic is not strong enough to defeat it. Seeing her struggle, Well finally snaps back to reality and supports her. He decides that there is no way to save his brother now, and he should just send him off peacefully. He uses holy magic too, and increases his power to purify the giant undead monster. A bright flash of light disintegrates the monster, and the central capsule carrying Kurt flies off and explodes in the distance. The flute of menace drops, but Kurt's malicious soul flies off to the capital to find the man who tricked him. There, Rucker has thrown a party, thinking that Kurt must have killed Well by now, and he will soon have access to all of the undeveloped land. His allies compliment him for his great plan, and Rucker says that they can't trust Kurt completely yet, as he is just a country idiot. Just then, Kurt's malicious spirit breaks the window of the room and takes revenge on Rucker. The next day, Well goes to the capital and meets Roderich outside the crime scene. He learns that it was a massacre last night and Kurt's soul killed Rucker and all the guests that attended his party. A total of 12 nobles and their entire families were at the party, and now they are all dead. The priests from the church have already purified Kurt's malice, but the news has reached everyone. Roderich tells Well that everyone knows about Kurt's crime now, so they cannot let Amelie stay in the capital as it will be dangerous for them. The people would hate them for being the family members of a criminal, and the peaceful life Well wants to give them will be impossible here. Well realizes that he must adjust them somewhere else, and he feels bad that he cannot do more for his sister-in-law. Later, he meets up with Armstrong and Brant and tells them that Herman has decided to keep Amelie and her sons with his family for now. Well says that this situation arose because of the nobles selfishly using other people as chess pieces while staying in shadows. He curses Rucker and also the nobles on the king's side, saying that all of them are jerks, but Brant tells him to look into the mirror and say that to himself as he is a noble himself. Those words hurt Well, and he is consumed by guilt for many days, but Elise notices that something is eating at him. He talks about it with her, and she comforts him, saying that nothing is his fault. Her words cheer him up, and he decides that he will not be like other nobles and swears to become a good noble who cares for his people. Elise says that he always pushes himself too hard to attain some impossible standard, but she and his other friends will always support him. Soon, Will goes to meet with the king after everything is settled at home. The king commends him for swiftly taking care of the unrest in his territory and rewards the land to him. He says that since developing all that land was a big task, he wants to reward Well with something else too and asks him if he needs anything else. Well does not hesitate and takes the king's offer. He says that in the accident where Rucker and his friends died, 12 noble families ended and now their titles are empty. Although only the king has the right to award those titles, Well wants the right to give 2 titles to the people he chooses in exchange for developing the land. As soon as they hear this, the prime minister, the general, and even the priest disagree with Well. They say that he is rude to make such a request and tell him to immediately take it back. The general even goes as far as to say that Well is not suitable to look after the huge patch of land and half of it should be taken away from him. The prime minister argues that the general just wants to give it to someone from his faction, but only someone with great magic power like Well could develop it. The Pope also gives his entitled opinion and they start quarreling, and soon, Duke Amadeus also joins the debate and he openly supports Well. Seeing everyone make selfish demands, Armstrong shuts them up and tells Well to take his request back. He requests the king to give half of the land to him, so that he can develop it using magic. The king refuses his request, saying that he is needed in the capital and Well can deal with the development on his own. He says that the development of the territory takes priority over everything else, and for that he will give Well what he asked for. As soon as the king declares this, Armstrong winks at Well because he was on his side and everyone else was also acting. The king catches them in the act but still gives Well the right to award 2 titles and promotes him to a count. Well returns home after receiving the reward and tells Amelie that when her children grow up, he will give them the noble titles he has. She thanks him and informs him that the offer to be a stepfather is still up, but he is not interested. Soon, Well gets busy with developing his territory using magic, and Erwin and Roderich are his assistants on the field. Well wants to rest after clearing rocks from an area, but Roderich wants him to clear another area and blast away some more rocks for a church. Well learns that the Pope is going to set up a church here in exchange for helping him with the absurd request he made to the king. Not only that, the Duke, the General, and the Prime Minister also have plans to set up holiday homes in Well's territory. However, Well is not going to give this location to them, as he plans to create a soy sauce factory here. Later, Elise comes to call him for tea, but before Well can go with her, Louise and Armstrong come to take him for their weekly training. Soon, Wilma, Susan, and Brant also return from the forest with a giant banana they found, and Wilma wants Well to make her banana bread. Susan also requests him to run an errand for her, and Roderich does not want him to go anywhere before completing his work. Everyone surrounds him and bombards him with requests, and Well is confused about what he should do, so he ignores everything and goes home to eat lunch with everyone. It is the same dish he could not eat in his previous life before coming here, and he finally gets to enjoy it, and well thinks that his life as the 8th son of a poor noble was not as bad as he thought it would be. That's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more, and watch this next video on screen.